Hello and welcome to Smash Hits Sports. The NBA season is over. Congratulations to the Boston Celtics, your NBA champs. But that means, Nick, we got to talk about the NBA draft. And I am excited for this draft. I understand that there's not a lot of top end talent. You're going to hear that from now until the night of the draft, that this is the weakest draft we've seen in the last decade. There are no stars in this draft, it's an empty draft. I think that there are going to be GMs who find some absolute gems in here. It's just not as obvious. We don't have a clear cut number one guy, but I am excited. And the Hawks were fortunate enough to get the number one pick, Nick. I know your Wizards are number two, so it's a big draft for Washington. But how are your thoughts just overall as we head into this NBA draft?
Yeah, so a couple things, I guess. One, I guess congrats to the Celtics, but one of the lamest NBA finals of all time,
Oh, yeah.
in my opinion. So not worth watching. It's at the point where I'm not sure the NBA finals is even appointment TV anymore. I just don't think it is. But besides the point, we can get into that later if you have a rebuttal, because you might. Thoughts on the draft, I guess, would be, I've said it before. I said it a couple episodes ago. I don't think there's going to be a guy that, even if he's amazing, is going to become that Luka 30 points per game guy. I just don't see a superstar. Even like people keep saying, well, like just because it doesn't look like there is one, there always is one, right? Like even Giannis in the 2013 draft. I think this is different because of the state of the NBA, not because these guys couldn't be molded into superstars, but because there isn't enough room for someone, barring like injuries, for someone to grow into that role. So the NBA needs to expand. So right now it just feels like a role player draft, and everyone's saying, well, the Wizards should take best player available, and that ends up being Zach Rhys in every mock draft, and that's just the least exciting thing you could read as a fan, right? Like, whereas last year it's like, ooh, Brandon Miller. Now it's Zach Rhys, who is like a 3-and-D with a little bit of bounce. Like, I don't know, man. If he turns into a stud, great, because the Wizards are one of those teams that could, produce a superstar because they don't have one right now. But yeah, it's overall, I don't know. I think a lot of these guys are going to be really good. None of them are going to be like special players. That's my take.
Yeah, I don't hate that. One thing that you're going to, or that I think we're going to see at the top of the draft is a lot more older players than we typically see. I know a lot of times you get freshmen that get in there early, but like Stefan Castle is 19, like Donovan Clingan is 20, Dalton Connect is 23. Like these guys are
Connects the big one.
older. Yeah, Connect's probably the first guy over like 21, 22 that we'll see drafted. But I think this is kind of an older class too. So maybe there are some guys who are going to be a little more NBA ready, but I don't know if that's truly the case either. Cause I don't know, man.
Think about it though, right now, right? Like, let's say Connect goes number 6, and I think that's where I had him in my mock that I did, because we watch college basketball. A lot of the NBA guys that are diehard NBA, they don't really watch it the way we watch it. They watch it more like, oh, Dalton Connect is white and is 23. There's that, you're not allowed to go top 10. So some of my buddies are like, he's not going top 10. I'll bet you my life. I'm like, you don't understand what it was like watching him. It was superhuman.
Yeah.
He is definitely going top 10. I'd put money on it. But when you do take him, and who is the sixth, like who's drafting there? The Hornets?
I guess. 6 is Hornets, yes.
Yeah, so let's say the Hornets take him at 6, or they trade him or something. What do you think would happen in his career arc if he's relatively kind of at a peak of sorts, developmentally? Like, he's not going to, you can't mold him like you can an 18-year-old. So having watched him play in college for like 30 games this year, do you think that he could like guard a big, lengthy Brandon Ingram playing the 2? Like, do you think that he is going to be able to create a shot that well?
See, I think he's going to be able to score in the NBA. I think Dalton Connect, the second he gets drafted, is going to be a 15 to 18 point per game player. Like he could be a 20 point per game guy throughout his career. His issue is going to be his defense. It was his issue at Tennessee. It was his issue when, before he transferred to Tennessee. I just don't like that's just it is what it is. He's just going to be a hole on defense. But we've seen guys be holes on defense and still have very long and very successful NBA careers. I mean, Luka was an absolute cone on defense last night in the NBA Finals. So I think Connect's going to be fine. But the question is he going to be able to transition into a scoring role right away? And I think if he goes to a team like the Hornets, I think that's a good spot for him because they need scores, right? Like they have Melo and that's it. And outside of
Yeah,
that, like they
Brandon
don't
Miller,
really. And Brandon Miller,
who I
fair,
love
fair.
dearly.
So I think that would give them like a really fun scoring output.
Mhm.
The Hornets are in a position where they're going to draft. They have needs everywhere, so they're just going to draft best player available. If that is Klingon, I don't hate it. I would love to see, or sorry, if that's Connect, I don't hate it. I would love to see Dalton Connect go to the Spurs because I think they need some sort of scoring option outside of Victor Wembanyama. Dalton Connect can score, and Wembanyama can
Yeah,
cover just about any hole on defense. I think that would be a really interesting pair to
they
see
need.
Dalton
Yeah,
Connect offensively. I know they need a true one, so I would
they need
not
someone
take
to get
Dalton
them the
Connect.
ball. They need someone to get
Yes.
both of them the ball. So that's just a little tricky. But yeah, and you said Klingon, who like if I were to have a wish list for the Wizards pick, like if you looked at the Wizards roster right now, they have Marvin Bagley as their like
Mhm.
one and only center, or
Yeah.
maybe Rashawn Holmes. He might be a free agent. I don't know. But the Wizards just need a defensive big really
Mhm.
bad, and Klingon is that to a T. So it would just shock me if they passed that up. That's really plain and simple because he's also a younger guy. Like, yeah, he's 20, but he's not like he's the type of guy that I think you could almost uh, teach. Like Brooke Lopez learned how to shoot threes,
Mhm.
and no one would have ever said that that was possible in 2012. That people would be like, no way, Brooke Lopez. Like, imagine saying Robin Lopez is wet from three. It's just something you can't compute.
Yeah.
Klingon, I think, in 4 or 5 years, could maybe space the floor a little bit. And then if that's the case, he can play 32 minutes a game if his stamina is good enough. And he can stay healthy. He can be really, really valuable, like an all-star type guy on a team like the Wizards that would use him, obviously. And then there's Stephon Castle because you could argue the Wizards also need a one, right? And that's the same sort of thing where it's like, can he shoot? Not really. He was afraid to for sure.
Mhm.
But he was playing as an 18-year-old or a freshman, on the biggest stage with the knowledge that everyone around you can shoot. So I do think like there's been some rumors and rumblings that Stephon Castle is knocking down his form looks great and he looks like he is a shooter at these like workouts. And people are just like, well, why weren't you shooting? And he's kind of just like, well, I didn't need to, like there's a different efficiency.
Yeah, I think Stephon Castle is truly one of the most interesting prospects in this draft because he came into UConn in a role where he was expected to not just produce offensively, but he was expected to mesh with a team that returned a lot of guys from a national championship roster. And for him to come in and do that, for him to be a critical piece in that national championship run, and to be outside of Donovan Clingan, he was far and above the best defender on that team as well. He's an outstanding perimeter defender, and I think that'll translate to the NBA pretty quickly. I Stephon Castle, if I am sitting with the Spurs at 4, if you can give me Castle at 4 and Connect at 8, I would love that for the Spurs because it gives you a guard who can, hopefully get Wemby the ball. I don't know how good I'm seeing like the Nikola Topic, being mocked to
Yeah, San
them a
Antonio.
lot. And like he's a tall point guard, like he looks the part, but I haven't seen enough of his film to know how outstanding of a passer he is. I think it would be really cool to see Castle get in there. at
I think the
San
Spurs
Antonio.
want a Euro guy though. I think just like there's something about like the Euro guys and their feel for
Mhm.
passing. It's just I don't know.
Tony
It translates
Parker,
so well, huh?
Frenchman. I said
Who?
Tony Parker, the Frenchman.
Oh yeah, no, and like Ricky Rubio and Luca and anyone that you bring over that's a guard seemed like that. Like uh, Campazzo was on the Nuggets for a little, and he was like
Mhm.
he had nothing to offer but passing, and he got a ton of minutes for like the Nuggets when they were good. So I think Topic, however you say it, I think that makes a little more sense, um, especially because Castle I don't think is necessarily like
He's not
great.
like a true one. He's not
He,
like a
he
creator in
almost
the way that.
to attack more and just switch him to like an off ball guy, right?
Yeah,
That's like would be the dream for a lot of teams. It's weird, but that's the thing is like a lot of these players, like there aren't these guys that it's just like oh I can pick you, knowing like I don't have to do anything. I just know what you are. Most of these guys is like okay, we're gonna have to like experiment a lot.
yeah, and the guys that I think you pick and you do know what they are, like they're very limited in what they can do. Like I think Devin Carter is one of those where he was outstanding at Providence, hyper productive, like a very tough, gritty dude. He can absolutely get it done on both ends of the floor. But like Devin Carter's ceiling is like a high end role player on a contending team. Like
Well, he's
he's
like somewhere in between like Deuce McBride type energy when you bring him
mhm.
off the bench, or like and like Jose Alvarado type guy, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Where like,
I was thinking
or
like Marcus Smart, like
yeah,
high energy, high effort, causes mayhem, good
but
defensively. Like
yeah,
he
that's on the other
can give
side
you some
though.
good minutes, but
Smart,
eh,
started for the Celtics like for years, right? So,
yeah,
and I think like Devin Carter, if he gets like a confidence as he progresses, he's got a stroke. Like he's not afraid to pull it
mhm.
from 32 feet, and he can go off for a lot of points. So he's a very interesting prospect just because he's so good and aggressive defensively too.
Yep. So we talked through the UConn guys, we talked through the Spurs a little bit. Who are some guys, Nick, that you are absolutely high on? Because I know you're a college, hoops guy through and through.
Hmm.
So I'm interested to see who do you think is going to make the best transition into the NBA. It doesn't have to be, your top five guys, but just guys that you absolutely believe in.
Yeah, I like Cody Williams a lot. As far as
Yeah.
I'll give you one college guy, one like European guy because there's so many Europeans. But
Mhm.
from college, yeah, I like Collier too. Like some of these guys that are falling towards the late end of the lottery, which is honestly a lot of the times that ends up working out so much better for careers. Like Tyler Hero, Donovan Mitchell, that just get drafted
Yeah.
and they're immediately good because how did they fall that far? But Cody Williams just has that feel to him, that slasher, the length. He absolutely has the length, which is something that apparently matters so much in the NBA now. Um, I think his efficiency was like top 10 in the Pac 12. He had some injuries. He was wearing a mask like the whole year, still putting up points, great defensively. Like, I think he's a guy that could start pretty much off the jump. And just from like, it's not like I've watched interviews or know him personally, but he has that type of energy and aura where it's like he nothing is gonna like he's not gonna like lose confidence or get down or
Yeah.
like get the yips or anything. Like he like his brother is thriving in the NBA already. Um,
Yeah.
so like I feel like he's just gonna go in and kind of just be good immediately, and he's fallen pretty far. Collier's the same sort of thing where he was hurt and the focus was on Bronny so much over at USC. But when
Yeah.
Collier's good, I mean, he's just like SGA never shoots. There are some guards out there that never shoot and are dominant.
Mhm.
Um, they just get into the paint and get their shot, and I think Collier could be that. And then as far as a Euro guy that I think some people are like, I don't know, I Buzelis is probably that. And I had like my cousin actually texted me like 2 months ago and was like, and he's like obsessed with the NBA, right? So he was just like Matas Buzelis. That is bona fide the best player in the draft, I promise. Like, and he's like following it all. And so then I've
Wow.
been watching a little film, and I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. As far as a translation, he's just really raw, and he has everything that you would want from a scout. So I think Buzelis could sneaky go number 2. You know, that's the thing about this draft is like anything's possible in that sense. Who like Saar going number 1 feels probable, but it's not guaranteed. What if it's Klingon?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyone.
I've heard that, and I don't know how much I really, really want to put trust in this, but I heard that the Hawks are in love with Klingon, but they don't want to draft him at 1. They want to try to trade back and see if they can't get Klingon at, 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, Buzelis, I've heard a lot of great things about his player comp. I've heard Tayshaun Prince and like a Hito Turgaloo type, which would be like I think really, really solid. I mean, you get a guy who can extend the floor and shoot and defend, that small forward position, but like it's oversized.
Yeah.
Tankathon has him listed at 6'10". I don't know how accurate that is, but like that's a tall wing if you can get him to play on the wing like that.
I mean,
Yeah,
he's probably more like 6'8.5", but that's still.
Yeah. And I love how you mentioned Isaiah Collier, because I remember back when we had Ryan Hammer on at the beginning of the college basketball season, we talked through and we were like, hey, who are some of the guys that we need to watch throughout college basketball that, NBA guys need to watch because they could be, top 5 picks. And Isaiah Collier was like the first name out of his mouth. He was potential number 1 guy. And for him to be at the back end of the lottery now, I don't think that it has to do with Collier's play at USC. It's just that we didn't get to see him play a ton at USC. Like he missed so much time with injury, and then when we did see him, it was on a USC team that was kind of already done for the year.
They were dead. We didn't get to see like all the people that started watching college basketball during championship week and then the tournament. Like Isaiah Collier was done. He was out.
Yeah.
They were sub 500, so they're not playing NIT or CBI or anything. Like the stats you were watching, and it's Pac-12, right? So a lot of these guys, like they're not Pac-12.
Yeah, Pac-12 after dark.
Awful. So you couldn't watch the games, and if you could, it was at 11 p.m. So just Collier didn't have he didn't garner the attention from the East Coast. It just not enough,
especially with the focus being on Bronny. And I think he's got a real shot to make an impact. Would be really interested to see where he goes. You mentioned Cody Williams. I love Cody Williams. I think he's an outstanding player. A guy that's not a European, but I really like is Ron Holland for the G League Ignite.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been high on G League Ignite guys, but I think Ron Holland is like, he was supposed to be one of them ones, like a top prospect or not prospect, but he was one of the best recruits in this class. And then he ended up going G League Ignite. I think he had offers to like every Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, all those schools. And he ended up going G League Ignite. And I think he could be a damn stud. 2 other guys that I like, we haven't talked about Edey yet. We'll talk about him. I love Zach Edey. Baylor Shireman.
Okay.
That man did everything for Creighton. And when you watch them play, like he was clutch when they needed him to be clutch. He was outstanding. Like he was a distributor. He can do everything. He can do absolutely everything. And I know that like his athleticism is in question a little bit, but at the same time, like if you could give me Baylor Shireman, who's like a 6'6", 6'7" guy who can play the 2 and the 3 and like just be a facilitator and a weapon on offense. I love Baylor Shireman. I'm hoping that like the Pacers don't have a pick until the second round. I hope that Baylor Shireman falls to them. I don't think he will. I think Baylor Shireman will be a first round pick. That's how much I like him. But I think he's going to be a guy that we talk about on winning basketball teams for the next decade. It's like, oh yeah, like he's not the best player on any team, but that guy, he's a winner. And I love Baylor.
I think he'd be really good for the Pacers. I think it's like a fit dependent type guy. But I just think that like, and this is probably why he's not going to be going in the lottery. There's just no way, but he just does not have that high of a ceiling at all, really.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think it, like, if you get lucky with Shireman, I think you're getting sort of like when Joe Ingles was at his best,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And Ingles was starting games for like 4 seed Utah and whatever. Like right now,
Brooklyn. Yeah.
it feels like that's an insult almost because it's Joe Ingles. But like you got to remember that he was very, very valuable,
Yeah.
and
No.
he's a guy that you you look at, you're like, that's just a dad. Like he's just a father that like is like should be barbecuing and he's just hooping. Shireman gives off that vibe. And if you were to compare him to someone young, right, it'd be like, I don't know, I guess like the Trey Murphy, Keegan Murray type guys that are
Mhm.
like, oh, any given day, they could nail like 6 threes, and you're like, damn, I wish we picked him. He fell so
Mhm.
late. But then the next day, you take his over 12 and a half points and he just doesn't shoot. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't do it like enough because he doesn't offer enough in that sense.
Yeah. He's like 1 for 2 from the floor with like 3 assists, and like
Yeah,
he
and
put in
it's
some
like
really, really
23
hard
games
minutes.
not possible, but that's the vibe I get from Shireman. But he could become that Ingles type guy where it's like, okay, this is second round of the playoffs, and he's playing 30 minutes a game, and your your thought as a fan of your team is like, why the hell didn't we draft him?
Yep. But let's talk some big men. There are 3 college basketball big guys that I think are all going to be valued kind of in that same area. There's Kyle Filipowski, there's Kalel Ware, and there's Zach Edey. How do you feel about those 3? Do you like which do you think has the most upside? How high I think Zach Edey's a round 1 guy. I think he's a mid-round 1 guy. I think if teams use him correctly, he can be a good starting center in the NBA. You just have to find the right way to use him. And I know he is quoted as saying like, "I can shoot, I just haven't had to." We'll see. I know that everybody seems to say that when they get into the draft process, but what are your thoughts on those 3 guys as bigs? How would you rank them?
Yeah, and there's also like Eves Misi and Deron Holmes, right? Who I
Yep.
think I would have to compare. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Misi went before Edey, So
Yeah, that's
if
fair.
I'm going to executively throw those in and do a little top 5, I guess, for you. But it's interesting. I haven't thought about this, so I might think out loud here. Filipowski, Edey, okay, Kello Ware. Yeah, it's tough. Like the Wizards have the 26th pick, so I've been eyeing that a little bit, and I'm like, oh, if
Mhm.
Edey fell, I would love to pick him. It's one because we need a big who's just like an interior force, like
Yep.
you can't drive on me type guy, and Edey would be great in that sense. I feel like he has the mentality to grow and succeed. Like he grinds, right? And
Yeah.
like he almost has a vibe that like he was not coordinated before, and then he won like back to back Player of the Years, and you look at him, it's like robotic in a sense, which shows you that this isn't like natural God given talent. He was given the height. He's had to grind so hard to get the skill, which just tells me that he's going to continue doing that. And if he
Mhm.
does, I think he could absolutely be a very good player. Um, Whereas some of these other guys like can stretch the floor a little more, like Filipowski, Deron Holmes, are guys that I think would put up like 2 to 3 threes a game in the NBA, in the modern NBA. So I
Mhm.
think that has a little more value because you can kind of play them quicker. And these teams drafting late are, trying to get more NBA ready guys.
Yeah.
Um, so in that sense, it's so tough because Kello Ware is probably going to go high just because he's an athletic specimen.
Mhm.
Music's the same way, but I guess I would go Filipowski 1, and then Ware, and then Holmes, Edey, Misi. That would be my ranking, and I expect them all to go from like 18 to 30.
Yeah, I love the thought process through that. I do think they're all first round guys. Khalil Ware is the most interesting to me. He's got a 7'4" wingspan. Like when he wants to be an elite defender, he can be an elite next level defender.
It's like Derek
And
Lively.
yeah, and I would love to see what he can do with a coach that like really, really drive. Because the thing about Indiana is they've put like solid NBA prospects into the league. Like Trace Jackson Davis wasn't some sort of elite prospect when he was drafted by the Warriors. He was drafted in round 2. And yet,
Late.
he was pretty productive for Golden State this year in
Mhm.
year 1. Like Khalil Ware is an interesting one to me. I like Edey. I think he needs to be drafted in a situation where they are going to really scheme around him correctly because Edey offensively can be a force when you need him to be. I mean, the guy averaged 28 points a game his senior year, but he can also be an absolute liability if he's not used right. So it'll be interesting to see like where he ends up because there are teams that are drafting like playoff teams that I would not want to see him on at all. I would not want to see him in Milwaukee. If he and Giannis were on the same team, that paint is going to be so goddamn clogged. You're going to need the
Yeah.
plumber to
And he
come and
can't, he
unclog
can't
it.
go. I don't
Like
even know if the Lakers have a first rounder. I don't think they do. Or they do at 17.
they do, but it's like 17. Yeah, so he's not going to go
So,
that
like,
high.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah,
If
I don't want to
it's,
see him in Minnesota. Him and Rudy
yeah,
Gobert could
I
not
mean,
exist on the floor together at the same time.
yeah, they would. They
Like,
would never. Minnesota would never do that. So that is interesting in the sense of like, okay, spelling Rudy with Edey, but that just limits him. Like my problem is that I would want to see him go somewhere where, he's not just like immediately thrown into this like 12-minute per game role,
mhm.
where his development is capped a little bit. So if we're
Yeah,
looking at, um, you know, like the Jazz are drafting 29,
yeah,
the
but
Knicks,
don't they have that guy from Florida though, Walker Bueller,
Walker Kessler from Auburn.
Walker Kessler. That's who it is.
Right, but
See,
I think
SEC. I knew it.
yeah, but I think they could coexist as like they both get like 24 minutes type vibe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The Nuggets doesn't make that much sense. The Knicks are too big of a market for Edey. Um, the Suns I can see just because like Nurkic is their starting center. Like they need, I can see that. That's
Yeah.
what Tankathon has actually.
Yeah.
The Wizards obviously I can see. I don't know about the Cat. Like it's so weird with
The,
Edey. It's so
I think it'd be interesting if the Celtics got him and just have him bang bodies with Joel Embiid when they play the Sixers. He'd be like,
yeah.
"Hey, Edey, just beat the shit out of Joel Embiid for 18 minutes.
It
Like
is true
that's
because
all
like,
we need."
Porzingis is hurt, and when Porzingis was out, like obviously the Celtics still speed ran the finals and speed ran the NBA,
Yeah.
but you could see like, oh, Porzingis isn't playing
Yeah.
this game. The Mavs are like, let's literally just only go to the paint. Let's dump inside. That was something that the Celtics were admittedly missing,
Mhm.
and having someone that is such a presence when
Yeah.
inevitably Porzingis gets hurt again, I think is probably a good thing.
Yeah, and then, like they had Al Horford who was able to fill in. Great,
But
great.
he's still
Which
Al Horford.
what a career for Al Horford! What a
Yeah,
career for Al Horford! But the
winning a ring
guys,
in his 18th season is nuts, man. Like
yeah,
I wasn't even watching basketball when he was like in college and won at
yeah,
Florida back to back. Like I was too young, and he's
yeah.
still kicking it. That's crazy.
Which is it's nuts to go back to back at Florida and then have an 18-year gap before you win your title in the
Yeah,
NBA. But Al Horford I think he's a free agent after this season, and the guy's 38. Like you
surely
know,
he's done, right? I mean, he's still got more to offer, I think, but like I feel like
retire on
that's the way to
top. You
go,
just won a
right? Yeah,
title.
on
Yeah.
top. You feel like you're 38 going on 39. I don't know if he has a family or whatever, but like this feels like the right thing to do, unless he wants to run it back with the Celtics, which be my guess. But yeah, it's just to circle back. It's just Edey is interesting, because it's so dependent on who gets him. Whereas someone like Deron Holmes, who could maybe slip into the second round, I think those teams that we mentioned, like the bigger market teams, could easily get Holmes. I think that'd be
Mhm.
fine. Like I can see him going to the Knicks at 24, 25, or going to the Lakers. I don't know. It's tricky.
Yeah. Yep. And that's this NBA draft. It's going to be interesting. I'm gonna be dialed into this one. Because
What,
who knows?
a week from today, or when is it?
NBA draft date. I think it's the 26th.
Yeah.
So, yep, 26th and 27th. Which I think is this the first year that the NBA draft is going to 2 days?
Oh yeah, I didn't feel like it
Yeah,
wasn't.
I feel like in the past they used to do rounds 1 and 2 all on the same day, and you kept it moving. But it looks like this year it's going to be the 26th and the 27th, going after the NFL model and trying to stretch out the draft into a longer event. Which one thing about the NBA draft coverage, which I always find hilarious, is they put Stephen A front and center. That guy watches like 6 college basketball games a year, and then is like, you know what they say about this guy, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
yeah, you've not watched any of these dudes play. Like it's
yeah.
crazy, but I would love
That's just like
to.
Nick scouting, and then like
Yeah,
whoever the next pick, he rages regardless. I think
yep. The NBA draft is one of those events where I will watch live on TV and then I will listen to somebody else commentate on the picks and stuff that are going on, because like I just don't.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not a
mean, if I'm
huge
not
fan
doing
of.
anything, it's on for sure. If not, it's more so just like you get like you turn on the notifications for whoever, like Shams Charina, who announces all the
Shams and
picks,
Waj,
or yeah,
yeah.
whatever.
Which why that's one thing I hate about the NBA draft. They tweet the picks like 2 minutes before every single pick is announced on TV. Like, could you imagine if the NFL did that? They would
Yeah,
not. You
they
wouldn't
kind of
watch the draft.
yeah,
It's
they have the NFL has done that a couple times where it's like you have like I turn off my Schefter notification, like I'm
yeah,
done, turn them all off because I want to feel like the Penix pick. I wanted to
yeah.
feel
You
that
want to feel
live.
the emotion of
I was
that.
like, whoa, that's crazy. Instead of seeing the tweet and then not being able to say anything because I'm watching with people and then being like, that is crazy, but I couldn't react to it properly. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
It'll be interesting. Do you think there are any guys that are going to be traded this year? Like, I think
like
Zach Levine is. Huh?
during the draft,
Yeah, yeah. Like the
that's
first one that comes to mind for me is Zach Levine. Like the Bulls, but like, do you trade for this year's picks with how this draft is? Like, you
yeah,
almost just want to
probably not.
wait.
I honestly think that teams would be pretty happy to trade away their pick. Like, I was thinking, like, oh, what could the Wizards get for the second pick? And obviously, the Wizards aren't in a spot where that makes sense to go get like a bona fide star who's 30 years old. That just
Yeah,
makes zero sense. But in theory, it's like, you could probably get in like, a lot for the second pick. And if you're not in love with anyone there, which wouldn't surprise me if they're not in love with anyone there, it's interesting. There might be some teams that surprise us. I haven't heard anything about it, so but
yep.
we'll see.
Something to keep an eye on. Last topic, Nick. Bronny. We got to talk about it. But before we get into Bronny, we have to plug Home Field. Home Field has the absolute best college merch in the game. They just released a lineup for Delta State, which are the Fighting Okras. Nick, I don't know if you've ever seen the Fighting Okra mascot.
Oh my
It
god,
is outstanding. It
is
is
it
one
just
of my
corn?
favorite. Huh?
Is it okra is like corn, right, or something?
No, it's like a green, like every time I've ever had okra, you fry it. It's a green vegetable. You throw it in the fryer,
It's a
breaded,
veg-
fried. Yeah, but it
I'm not.
smacks so good. It's a very southern thing, but
Wait,
it smacks.
what's the team called? It's what?
Delta State Fighting Okras.
Oh my god, that's so.
Yeah,
so
give it a Google. They
I
just released a Delta
oh my
State Fighting.
god.
They just released that line. It's fire. And then UC Santa Cruz is the Banana Slugs. They
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
released a Banana Slugs line. I'm gonna have to cop some of those
That's
because
my
they're
dad's
absolutely
favorite
outstanding.
college. So I honestly, that would have
The,
been a nice Father's Day gift. It's never too late though. If you forgot to get one,
yeah,
go get.
if you forgot to get one, use code Nick15 to get 15% off your first purchase at
If your
Home
dad's
Field.
never told you he likes the UC
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz banana slugs, he does. He just hasn't told you. Trust me.
Yeah.
Okay, 'cause
I found out about them during in high school basketball. The team used to do like a T-shirt, like white elephant gift. So everybody had to buy a college sports T-shirt, and I Googled the best college sports mascot, and that's when I found out about the UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs. But
I always thought it
yeah,
was Santa Barbara
is it
until,
Santa Barbara?
well,
I
I
think it's
don't
UC
know.
Santa Cruz.
I don't think it is, but I remember I thought it was. Yeah, it's UC
Yeah, it
Santa.
is. It's UC. Yeah,
But like
gotta
growing
love
up,
it.
I was like, oh, it's UC Santa Barbara, and I would tell all my friends like, oh, the banana slugs. So yeah,
Santa Barbara's the Gauchos, aren't they?
who's the anteaters? Isn't there like an anteater out there?
We need
Um,
to do just a
yeah, that's the
mascots of college
Gauchos.
basketball.
The
Yep,
U,
UC Santa Barbara's the Gauchos. Who's the
it's
anteater
the
mascot?
UC Irvine or the anteaters. Should know that because they've been
Yeah,
all the time. So
yep,
um, yeah, a bunch of good mascots out there, man. It's like minor league baseball.
yep.
The UC
Absolutely,
Purples.
absolutely.
That's
All
awesome.
right, let's talk Bronny. There was a point in time where his over under for where he was going to be drafted was 30 and a half. Essentially saying, is he going to be drafted in the first round or not? That over under has now dropped. I think it's 52 and a half. The last
Yeah.
I looked, I think that's much more fitting. What are your thoughts on Bronny? How this whole process has gone down? Do you think he had is it just going to be default that if the Lakers are,
I think that's what's going to happen. I think it has to be the reason that he stayed in the draft is because he knows that he's going to LA with the 55th. I think that's just what it is because it would just shock me. Like I guess there's the whole, if you draft him, LeBron's coming, that thing, and that's just crazy to think about drafting
yeah,
someone not for them though. Like that's just nuts. But I think it's going to have to be the Lakers late in the second round, which is great because then the Lakers GM must have just been like, "Oh, that's how we get LeBron to stay and play more years for us, and keep our ticket sales high and all that, right? Like all the finance behind it is that we just tell Bronny, we are drafting you, we promise, like stay in the draft." And he's like, "Okay, fine. You're going to give me a bonus, like all that. Fine, I'll stay in." That's had to have been what went down. I don't believe anything else.
yeah. I just don't. He's going to get drafted. Like, there's no shot that Bronny goes undrafted. I think the question truly is, I think that 55 stop is the Lakers. I just think, is anybody above them going to draft him? I think it's the big question.
Yeah, it'd be a surprise. Maybe
Golden
that's why
State at 52.
days. Yeah, right. Oh my
Pair
God.
LeBron and Steph would be. They're going to offload Clay's contract. He traded Draymond. Would be pretty sick.
Be interesting.
Would be sick.
Interesting. I
But
don't know if the
yeah,
Lakers would accept it, but yeah.
Okay, one last thing before we go, because I'm gonna be honest, that's enough Bronny talk. I'm gonna throw it in the thing, but I don't care that much. Like he might be
That's the
okay
thing
in
is
the
that
NBA.
we talk NBA, Cody, and we never really talk NBA, but we're doing it now because it's the
Yeah,
summer. But I don't freaking care about the NBA. It
yeah.
doesn't offer me. It doesn't offer me anything.
I did almost care about the NBA a lot though,
Well, you had
because
if the Wizards were good, trust me, I'd be right there. But
fair.
the Wizards will never be good. So
Well, but the reason that I almost cared about the NBA a lot is they almost stole one of the premier, if not, no, not one of. He is the best coach in college basketball right now. It's Danny Hurley.
oh yeah,
And the talks with the Lakers fell through. I think that really came down to him, his family, his wife. They are East Coast through and through. Like they grew up in New Jersey basketball. His dad coached like a New Jersey basketball coaching legend. They've been East Coast through and through. And I think when it came down to it, his family was like, you know what? We could probably get the bag and go to LA. Do you know the last coach for the Los Angeles Lakers that has lasted more than 3 years, Nick? Can you name him?
Phil Jackson.
It is Phil Jackson.
Yeah,
That is the last coach for the Lakers that has lasted more than 3 seasons. So if you are Danny Hurley, why would you want to go to LA? If you were lucky, your 3 years, all 3 years include LeBron James. But like the expectation every single season is to win an NBA title. And if you don't do that, you are a failure. Or you can stay at the top of college basketball and you can bring back Alex Caravan and you can bring back, all the talent and all the recruits that you have at UConn, and you can try to run it back another year. Danny Hurley has a job for life at UConn. And he is going to be one of the highest paid coaches in college basketball as long as he's there. I don't know why you would give that up for a 2, 3, 4 year shot in LA. Because if you don't win a title, you're gone. Yeah. And like the West isn't
the
easy.
Longevity in LA looks terrible too, right? Yeah. Like they don't have future picks. Their best players are old. The league is like changing. You need this young superstar if you want to compete. Like it's a death wish almost. And the only thing that I was thinking of is like, okay, if LA offered him quadruple the money he gets at UConn or something where it's like, okay, you got to remember, like, I am working for more than just myself. I'm working for my family and my family's future generations and just everything about it. There was probably a number out there that was too much money to pass up. And it'd be different if Danny Hurley was getting like, $2.5 million a year at UConn or even less maybe. But he's getting a lot. And I think the offer the Lakers made was like just under double. But it doesn't matter because Danny Hurley is making like $7-8 million or something like that a year, which is a freaking plethora. That like you don't need anything else. That alone right there is, I think, what his decision was probably based on is like, if he countered, maybe that's why it took a while. Is he's like, if you offer me like record-setting money, then I'm not going to be able to turn it down. And the Lakers were like, no, we can't do that. So, but I'm glad he stayed, Cody, because it's a massive win for college basketball. Because you and I, college basketball guys, maybe me a little more than you, but
yes,
it's it's the idea that we can say, like, oh yeah, see, look, college basketball is better than the NBA because the best college coach turned down the best NBA team vacancy. We can spin it however we want. We can just the narrative is like, okay, well, college basketball is better. That's the reason that he stayed, is because he knows that college basketball is better than the NBA. And I love being able to say that now because I believe full-heartedly.
I do think it is. It's one of those things where not everything is about money. And I think Dan Hurley realized he's in a really good spot. He makes a little over $5 million a year, about 5.3 at UConn. He has a 6-year deal. The highest paid coaches in the NBA are Kerr, Pop, and Spoelstra, who are all over 15 million a year. Mm-hmm. So even if they doubled him to 10, which I don't know if the Lakers would do. I mean, they could.
I think that's what they offered him.
If they offered him $10 million a year, that would put him as the 6th highest paid coach in the NBA without having ever coached a single game in the But like that's without ever coaching a single game in the NBA. That's kind of crazy.
But imagine it was like, okay, we'll make you the highest paid coach. Like, does Danny Hurley turn that down in that sense if he's offered $18 million a year? I don't know, probably not, because again, that's. You're out after 3 years, but you made more than you would have made at UConn in your 6 to 10 years.
6-year tenure, yeah.
Yeah, like, so, but I'm glad he stayed. I am. There's still a lot of great coaches in college basketball, and something I do every now and then is like, because like Kelvin Sampson's up there in age. We saw Coach K, Roy Williams, some of these guys leave, and it's like, well, who are the coaches now? But it's interesting to look at some of the younger guys that when we're in our upper 30s, we're looking at these guys as the legends of the game. And college basketball is at a height where it's like you have 20 coaches who are in their 68 to 73 age season, and they're all freaking awesome, right? They have legacies. That's what I want. That's what I yearn for because we've had that recently. And I think we're going to get it because Danny Hurley is absolutely going to be that guy. And we have a bunch of these Scott Drew-esque, young cats, just a bunch. There's so many, and it's exciting. So I'm happy he stayed.
Yep. Absolutely love it.
Coach K
That
never
being,
left.
huh?
Coach K never left, right? And it worked out for
Yeah.
him. Great. Worked out
Yep.
for
Worked out outstanding. One of the winningest coaches of all time. So,
yeah. His legacy is higher than any NBA coach. You could argue.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think. I don't think that's crazy to say. So
That being said, this has been NBA stuff. We're going to have a couple episodes of the podcast before we get into our college football preview. So, the college football preview coming in July. We'll have a couple episodes before then. So, make sure y'all keep tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and send it to somebody who you think would enjoy it. It's the best way to help grow the show. Nick, what a hell of an episode. We
yeah.
will we'll see y'all in the next one.
Adios.